All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's training. Super excited about what I'm going to talk about today. Here's what I'm going to put down for you. What I want to talk about today is how do you manage the inner Hulk? Do you know the Hulk? The Hulk is this person who just like sits inside, and all of a sudden it gets triggered, it gets rage, it gets all kinds of stuff happening, and then in the maybe right moment or wrong moment, the Hulk just unleashes itself. All of a sudden, it just breaks out, and most of the time, when the Hulk comes out, it causes a lot of damage. So first, let's understand why this Hulk-like being. And if you're with me, type in the chat bar. Like, when do you ever have a Hulk-like being come out? Like, do you ever get pushed, shoved, angered? Something's going on with social media or one of your friends or one of your family, and all of a sudden, boom, there you are, you come out. So first you got to understand that like what's poking at the Hulk. And a lot of times before the Hulk comes out, the Hulk is feeling a couple things, right? That inner rage. And what's happening is you have these patterns of behaviors over time, and all of a sudden they get triggered by something. Like someone pokes you, or someone yells, or someone gets in your face. And all of a sudden, you remember as a child getting yelled at. You remember as a child getting bullied and poked in the chest. And all of a sudden, this trigger goes off, right? And when this trigger goes off, you freak out. And then when you're done, you step back and you go, well, wait a minute. Okay, look around. Damage, destruction. People are saying, what did you did? What'd you do? You broke things, you broke doors, you slammed dishes. And when you step back from it, you say to yourself, wait a minute, is that something I needed to control? Or is that something I needed to understand about myself, right? About myself. Like, where do these things come from? What causes these things? I've had them plenty of times in my own life. But look, there might be a time that this Hulk and this rage might be of good use. I mean, if all of a sudden a car flips over and a kid's under it, and you hear about this all the time, moms picking up the back of cars and getting this Hulk-like strength, well, that might be a good time to use it. But what you want to do is make sure you understand the signs when this Hulk of aggression, this Hulkness is starting to break out. Because what you want to do is you want to make sure that you don't let it do damage, that all of a sudden you got to come back and you got to start saying to people like, okay, I broke dishes. And you guys tell me in the chat bar, and ladies, have you ever thrown anything, broken anything, slammed any doors, men punched any holes in walls, kicked any shelves off the wall? Like, what have you done? And part of understanding this whole Hulk-like rage is to go back in time and say, wait a minute, let me look at this experience that's happening now. I mean, today, would you say people are triggered a little bit or not triggered? Are they getting triggered easy or not? I mean, just look at it. There's road rage, and all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose, right? You see at football games and baseball games, someone's rooting for the other team or someone says something, all hell breaks out, and then the Hulks come out. Then you have one Hulk against another Hulk, and it's just a big fist fight of a mess. But the point is, if you want to avoid the damage that could come from this type of stuff, then what you want to do is go back to times when it happened, not to relive the situation, to understand the before the situation. Let me explain that. So if you go back, I want all of you to think of the last time you snapped at somebody, you had rage, you broke something, you freaked out, you screamed, you poked somebody, whatever it is. And I want you to go back to that time right now. Okay, you got it? Don't go there and feel it. I don't want you to be punching your computer and sending me all kinds of nasty things. I want you to go back to that time, and I want you to say this. Okay, let me go before that time. Okay, let me go way before that and ask myself a question. What happened in my life to make me then act this way? Now, if you're one of those people that are just like, you know what, nothing I do is wrong, I did it, it's not a problem, well, then this isn't going to have any value for you. But if you are somebody that is at a level of maybe education or maturity where you want to just have an understanding of what's making you do the things you do, what's making you break out with this Hulk like emotions and actions. So you go back in time and you say, okay, well, where did I learn to punch the wall? You didn't wake up as a baby, born as a baby with a bottle in your mouth, look around and go, oh, I don't know anything about this world. I think I'll punch that wall, right? You didn't do that. But I bet there goes back to a time where maybe your mom, your dad, a friend, they got rage. They punched the wall. And then you said, well, I guess that's that's very good behavior, because when you freak out and punch the wall, people pay attention to you. You get everybody's attention. And then you have to spackle the damn wall and you have to fix this stuff, right? Or if you go back to a time where you threw dishes at somebody or broke a dish or slammed a door. Well, if you can look at the last time you did that, maybe all of you right now are like, oh, I never broke any doors, slammed any doors. But if you did, go back and say, when's the furthest moment that I could remember getting that model of slamming the door? And I'm pretty sure it probably goes back to whoever was taking care of you as a kid, right? It goes back to your mom. It goes back to your dad. It goes back to a grandparent. It goes back to a caretaker. It goes back to a moment that you were taught. It could even go back to a movies. I mean, today, the movies are influencing the young kids. I mean, maybe back when my kids were little, we had like Wiggles and Barney. And what do they have today they're watching? I don't know what the heck they're tripping over today and watching. But if you go back to that time, if they're watching a TV show and little Lucy or something gets aggravated and smashes the plant, then the little kid goes, well, wait a minute, maybe that's a good way to get rid of my emotions. Well, look, this is a process, right? It's not an event. It's a process. So what do you do in the meantime? You're like, you know what, Mike, I sometimes get, and tell me in the chat bar, do you sometimes get really bottled up? Like where you just feel like you shook the bottle and it's like, boom, it's going to pop. Well, this is a good moment for a heavy bag or something, right? You want to have an environment. I don't know if you know what a capacitor is. A capacitor is most of the time it's in an air conditioner. It's in other stuff too, but it's in an air conditioner and it helps get a motor started, right? And if you pull this capacitor, when I was in vocational school, any of you that went to vocational school, the big thing was get one of these capacitors, and you'd walk through the hall, whack somebody in the neck with it, which just sounds crazy now. Like you could really hurt somebody with it. It's like a bottled up stun gun. And so that's what the human person is like. We get this bottle up charge, but you have nowhere to discharge it. And what happens is you end up discharging it in an environment on somebody at the wrong time. And in the end, you go, oh, sorry, I discharged on you. Sorry that, well, that sounded a little inappropriate there, but sorry that I blew up on you. Sorry that I broke things. Sorry that I slammed things. And now you're like, oh, I didn't mean it, but you did this. You pushed the button on the charge. And you're like, now some people don't know they pushed the button. Other people know they're pushing the button, right? In the world today, they're looking for buttons to push. They're like, oh, so that's what will trigger this person. Boom, right? But if you could step back and go back in time, we could evaluate that and change so the buttons don't get pushed. And in the meantime, while you're going through the process, let's discharge. When people go to the gym, you might have let's say you have a lot of rage going to the gym. You're driving, people, traffic, like up where my wife and I used to live, Route 18, Route 1 traffic. You're there. You're like, oh my goodness, one's driving too slow, one's too fast, one are trying to race each other. You get to the gym and you start working out, or you go to the yoga studio and you start stretching and stuff. You leave the yoga studio or the gym, you pretty much took a lot of charge out. So now you're driving, you're like, okay, as an idiot, no big deal, until the workout or the yoga or the meditation wears off. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm going to knock him off the road. I'm going to run into him or something, right? If you could just like step outside yourself and start to understand, wait a minute, when do these things happen? When does this come up? What are my actions? And if you know what the triggers are going to be, well, how about I just not only discharge them, why don't I replace those triggers so they're not there no more? Because most of these behaviors, they're learned behaviors. You've heard that before. And everybody goes, oh yeah, it's a learned behavior. Okay, well, why the hell are you still doing it if you know you learn? Unlearn it. Unlearn it. I mean, the great thing about generations and about some of you, if you're a parent, type in parent in the chat bar. I'm sure if you're a parent, you probably had a door slammed and you probably slammed the door. Is that fair? Like it's probably happened before. But if you could go back now and say to yourself, well, wait a minute, let me find a way to remove these type of actions. Let me find a way to remove this model. Let me find a way to just look at myself and say, is that how I want to be today? Is that how I want to be moving forward? And break the cycle. Break the cycle for the next generation. If you look at your friends, look at your family. And I want you just to, maybe don't type it in here because you might have one of your friends or family on this channel with me watching it being like, what are you talking about, right? But look back in time and say to yourself, did you break any cycles? Did you break any? If you didn't break any cycles, then what you're saying is you have that theory. Well, it was good for me when I was a kid, so it's good for my kids. Well, I don't know if that's good. It's a very different world today. I mean, the population, the amount of cars, the amount of risks that are out there today, very different world than there was some cars on the road and single lane roads and not massive highways. And it's a very different world today. With that being said, ask yourself, I wonder if there's some other cycles that you would like to break consciously. And some of you, maybe not. You just think everything was just right. And that's good. If you want to do that, no judgments for me. Keep doing that. But I like to look at things and say, you know what? What is the cycle that I want to change? What is the maybe area that I want to do? And look, there's plenty of things. I probably said it on another video. I'm not one of those people that go, well, if I went back in time, I wouldn't change anything. No, if I could go back in time, there's some behaviors, some actions, some habits, some different things I did. I go, no. They said, well, that helped you grow there. I said, well, I could have still grown just without that. So maybe take this lesson today. I'll put it back up here is, how will you manage that inner Hulk inside of you if you have it, and start to maybe redefine it for yourself. And I hope this brings you a super sense of freedom, but not only freedom, maybe a little more self-control as you move forward in life for whatever you're trying to do in life. That's what I got for you today.